to make these institutions public oriented in times of crisis. And now the president along with the vice president will call for a meeting of the governors and lieutenant governors, and they'd be urged to make Raj Bhavans more egalitarian. So less ceremonial and more egalitarian. That's the message coming in from the top. Big decision taken by the Modi government in this time of crisis, when the number of corona confirmed cases are increasing in the country. The governments are ensuring that all ways and means are being used to tackle the situation, to curb the corona outbreak, and to try to reach out to people. Let's go across to our editor, internal security, Nikunj. Garg, it's a big decision by the Modi government. Nikunj, tell us more. Public-oriented institutions now.
Well, absolutely. And I think, as you rightly summed it, Swati, that this is an attempt to use every institution, every mechanism, every resource available to the state administrations and the government of India to ensure that this pandemic, this global pandemic that has now spread right into the heartland of the country, is somehow contained. And in this step, this very direction, the step of involving President of India, Vice President of India, all the governors and lieutenant governors, in many states, Swati, you have to keep in mind the lieutenant governors are the administrators of the union territories, Andaman and Nicobar, Delhi, a very strong institution of lieutenant governor, Chandigarh. In almost all those union territories, governors are de facto chief ministers, and in places like Puducherry also they have very critical role. And governors, the institution of governor, is a very critical and important institution in any case in the scheme of things as they stand in constitution today, and they have wield enormous amount of influence over the state administrations, irrespective of the fact whether they are functional or semi-functional or not fully functional. But that enormous amount of influence the Narendra Modi government now wants to use for public welfare, and wants to ensure that governors and lieutenant governors also actively engage with the state's civil administration and ensure that Raj Bhavans also become the pivot of entire activity and series of actions being launched both by the state administration and the government of India to try and ensure that this coronavirus pandemic, a first of its kind challenge ever being faced by this country and the globe, is contained in the right earnest in the shortest possible duration. And for that, marshalling of each possible resource, including the resource at the Raj Bhavan, at the command of the governors, also being roped in. This video conference that we are likely to see most likely will happen next week, when the president himself, alongside the Vice President of India, Mr. Venkaiah Naidu, will address all the governors and take independent feedback from the governors and the lieutenant governors about the implementation of the curfews, about the essential supplies, about the movement of critical services like medical professionals, like IT and IT-enabled services, and all of that across the borders will also be taken from the governors.
In fact, this is unprecedented what we are facing, what the government is facing, and these measures are the need of the hour, making sure that everybody from top to bottom in the chain, participates. Maximum participation comes in from these representatives so that they can set an example. In fact, the Prime Minister has been leading from the front right from the start. These decisions only would, in a way, kind of help bridge that trust deficit that many have.
Absolutely, Swati. The fact is that the governor's office largely, unless the state is engulfed with the crisis, there is a crisis of government formation or toppling of the government like we saw in Madhya Pradesh right now, is largely a ceremonial office. And most people see, and in fact, there is a huge question mark, and in the recent past, there have been a lot of questions asked as to why do we actually need a governor who is costing such a huge sum. The maintenance of the institution of governor which causes such a huge cost to the exchequer. Why do we actually need it? And in such a scenario, when an unprecedented situation has hit the country, has hit the world, it is a move in the right direction. Remember, as I said, that governor's office, governor's institution wield enormous amount of influence on state administrations, irrespective of the fact whether they have enough resources at their command to act independently or not. So to marshal that resource in the direction of public welfare, engaging the governors who also have, remember, they also have huge amount of political as well as administrative administrative acumen and experience at their disposal. They have been members of the public civil society
Right.
for a very, very long time, and their experience can always come in handy at a time of crisis. Whether or not state governments are directly engaging them, in some situations they will, in some situations they will not. So therefore, it's marshalling of the resource, as I said,
Right.
and an accumulative marshalling of experience in dealing with a crisis-like situation that the government is looking at, trying to make it more public-friendly, public-oriented.
Right. Nikunj, thank you very much for joining us with the details of this breaking development. Moving on now.